If you don't want to.
Getting worse.
You want that up there now?
Yes, I think you can just go ahead and start with PowerPoint up. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Go ahead and call the workshop to order. And I'll pass it over to you for review of the budget schedule and process.
So I've got an agenda in front of you. This year I did not do budget notebooks. But if you decide you want one, please let me know. I'm happy to make one for you. So we'll go through our overview of the scheduling process, discussion of assets, our mission and vision, and I've tried to streamline those as much as possible, along with the services. And then we'll get to our current budget evaluation, where we'll really focus, and then our budget priorities and accomplishments, upcoming issues, project overview, and then into our proposed budget needs. And we'll the selection of budget focus items with our dots at the end. So feel free to stop me as I'm going through this if you have any questions. So today we're going through our goals and objectives, the staff goals and objectives, a projects discussion, budget discussion, and then board prioritization. Department heads turned their requests into me by March the 3rd at their individual worksheets. March 23rd is our next council budget work session, where we prioritize our needs and objectives, but also the discussion on our non-budgetary priorities. March 30th is sooner this year for a grant spending deadline, and grants that aren't spent by that date, the department head needs to get with Lynn and make sure find out what is not going to be spent by the end of the fiscal year. But that's an effort to get everything finalized sooner. April 19th, the balanced draft budget will be sent to council, and you have a little bit over a week to review that before our budget work session on April 27th, where we go through that draft budget. May 11th is formally submitted to the council, and we have a tentative budget work session that day prior to our board meeting. It's advertised in the Sylva Herald the 11th and the 18th, and May the 25th, we have our public hearing on the budget with a scheduled approval of June the 8th. So now we have an open discussion of our assets as both a place and an organization. And thinking of when we're budgeting, we're putting our funds and expenditures towards maintaining those assets. So here is the list that we've made in the past of our organization and assets as the town as a place. Let me know if there are others that need to be added to that.
We need to add the community cares program for assets.
Not volunteers there under organization. Do you want, is that okay, or do we need to?
I think specifically since it's like a Vanguard project for the state, I think it's.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna add it when I have it on the table. Anything else?
Park is grown since, yeah, well, no, I guess it was before last year. Big part of that.
Mhm. Others?
District started. You're off again on that one. No, it just started.
Not by our last work session.
No, that's true. It was last January. Yeah. What if it's like the public hearing?
February 8th.
Was. Remember that one? Not, it was 22, right? 22, it was last year or a year before? Wait.
It was like,
Yes, 22, but before.
At this point, can we add some look art?
Yeah.
Priority for us.
So can I ask everybody, you're not sitting in front of microphones and these here, you need a little more volume to hear you, to make sure you hear.
thank you.
Yell out our assets.
Public artworks.
Yeah. Yeah, I get, and it's not just for, it's like the Sylva Herald. But they watch these.
And we actually have lots of people that view these meetings and we've gotten complaints that you can't hear.
Is there anything we can do about that? Like, can we get a drop microphone or do something that will pick up our sound better when we're
Maybe
sitting?
speaking up is the best.
Okay. I'll just give it my best shot.
Yeah. Oh, it's probably, it's like the cross talk is probably where things really get lost on that, yeah. We did acquire a piece of land from Jackson Paper. I don't know if that's an asset, but it enables a liability, but it enables us to fix that piece of property, this line, at least. It was a necessary liability.
It's no small task either.
It was, definitely is. But yeah, it's not gonna bring folks here.
Keep people in their homes.
Just keep people in their homes.
All right, and then as an organization, any other assets that need to be added to this list? I'll remind you that your greatest organizational asset is your employees. Okay, vision and mission. You're also budgeting to further both your vision for the town and your mission as an organization. So this is the mission that was updated at our retreat in July.
Proactive planning.
Yeah.
MSSA, did you get there somewhere?
That's awesome, big there.
I think it should say,
Yes.
I think this should say to proactively plan or by proactively planning.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to, we talked about this at the retreat. You ever go anywhere with that?
This is
I
what
think
you all
this is what we-
settled on.
This is what- okay.
This has been updated.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, they just need to be by proactively planning for the future. And yeah, we did have a discussion on this. Yeah. So, the changes. Fish farms.
Services. Go through these, looking at our organizational chart. Added the fire department here and the additional public works employee. Here's our administration mission statement and the services provided. I've put Main Street and additional economic development on this slide. Emergency services includes police, both police and fire. Listed the services here.
No.
You know if there are any department heads as we're going through these that need to be added. It's the Public Works mission statement.
Oh, that was a mess. That repair.
Yeah.
The mission statement. Sorry, I was remembering that. There. That's gonna be such a mess.
All right, here's your services under streets.
Either website.
We'll get to that under, when we're talking about what was accomplished with
Okay.
our current budget.
Hey, could we back up real quick? I think we need to add building maintenance.
And also, you know, tree, without getting too in the weeds, but I mean, like, a lot of the tree survey, you know, like, we call it trees and plants and landscaping and that kind of stuff. Does that need its own bullet or?
Generally falls under the umbrella of either right of way maintenance or. Cigarette.
Okay. But that's a big one, then.
And that support, I don't know if that goes in this category, right, but you do a lot of.
Yeah, that's right. Hog wrestling.
Yeah, I guess it's I mean, you've also got the little projects that we all have that you have to deal with.
Sure do.
I mean, that means.
Yeah,
It's. Yes.
And even et cetera.
Next, to the current financial situation. So Lynn will go over where we did well and where we fell short this year, and we'll look at the quarterly financial report. So, copy that. This is. And I feel like we're doing well right now, being in half a year. You seem to be on track or above from most of our state revenues and our investment earnings. The investment earnings last year, as of June 30th, I had budgeted 23,000, and we only received 7, which is in our general fund. As of right now, this year in Fund 10, which is our biggest part of our general fund, we're at 51,000. And so when I budgeted very conservatively because I knew they were saying interest rates would go up, but I did not want to rely on that until I actually saw it. So I think as long as we stay on track, I see us bringing in investment earnings of over 100,000. And so we do not budget that much. So that'll be good. You can see our investments, the 16 million, just a reminder that this does include the grant money in that. As we do these projects, that will be decreasing down. So the franchise taxes, the 4 that we receive, those are right now, those should be at 50%. We're above the 50% for 3 of them. The smallest one is just a tad bit under. That's the only one that's under.
The sales tax should be, we've received 4 payments. And we should be at around 33.3%. And most of those are over 10% right now, which we intentionally budget that way. We don't want to. We want to have a little leeway on the sales tax because of the way it fluctuates, and it's been going up a lot over the last couple of years. And we just, at some point, it's not. So, then what was? Okay, so one of the things I did, the sales tax, back in December, I did a video conference, and they had a panel on the sales tax. And that panel was really warning about the sales tax, not to increase it this year, and if more than likely decrease. They really don't know what's driving all of the sales tax to go up. There's a few ideas, but the panel, like they were just really stumped on what is causing the sales tax to go up. So I think we need to be real cautious of that. And I don't foresee us budgeting anything additional. And one of my concerns is, everybody keeps talking about a recession in 2023. Amanda went back and pulled some numbers out of our audit reports. And the first year of the recession in 2008, our sales tax came down 13%. By the second year, it was down 33%. And so in those particular years, we were getting like 500,000, 400,000. Last year, this current year we're in, I budgeted 144,000, 1,044,000. So if you take the 13%, that's roughly 136,000. If you do 33%, that's 344,000. So I do believe on our investment earnings, I will be able to budget more for the upcoming year, but I feel like it's going to be offset by the sales tax that we'll need to. We won't realize that extra investment earnings because we'll need to adjust for the sales tax, and we may even want to go down more. Another thing we need to keep in mind is 107's coming in, and we anticipate sales tax to go down for that. So a combination of both of these it's going to be hard to predict, but I do see it going down quite a bit.
So do we have, is it possible to look at the different kind of sections, if you will, of town? What generates more sales tax than other parts? Like, you know what I mean? How much to parse out the 107 strip, if you will?
We can't see the sales tax numbers. We just get a percentage of what the county gets, and it's all high. It's very complex.
Mm-hmm.
If y'all, in the past, I've made copies in case you had questions on the different sales tax and different revenues, state revenues. I did not do that today, but if you ever want to look at that, just let me know, and I've got a good source. I can send you an email with the breakdown. But no, it's all that's private information. So it's all sent into the state, and we don't see any.
You just get the number.
Yeah. And
Okay.
it makes it hard to know, you can't just subtract out a certain section or something because you don't know how much is generated.
It might also be a good buffer for when 107 does see a reduction in sales tax, because we'll still get, like, it'll be absorbed at the county level, right? Because we just get a percentage of the county sales tax revenue. Even though the percentage of sales tax that gets remitted from Sylva will go down more than the share will get.
Yes, and that's based on the county has the choice to do it on population or ad valorem. Jackson County, as far as I know, has always done it on ad valorem.
And what's that alarm?
It's our taxes. So if we have more.
You have more tourism, more people coming into your county that don't necessarily live there. If you're not a major metropolitan area, ad valorem is the best way to receive the most money.
So like if our tax rate is higher than the county's, it equates out till we get a little bit more sales tax. It just, it's the percentage there.
It's just how we divvy it out.
Yes, but it is based on the ad valorem.
But if we see a decrease overall in property values due to 107, will that affect the ad valorem tax rate? Or is it, or the ad valorem taxes, sales tax remitted, or is it only based off the tax rate?
That will affect your property tax.
Right, so just the property tax, that won't affect the sales tax percentage.
I think it will.
Yeah, it will.
It will have to because of the way it's built, because of the way the ad valorem is built into that formula.
Yes.
Okay.
So when our tax, and when she finishes, I'll talk about the tax, but when our tax value goes down, that's gonna affect what is done here with the tax rate, which is then going to in turn affect what happens the way it's built in.
Yeah, okay, I was thinking of your question as shrinking the base versus people dropping out. But, yeah.
So then we have the fund balance analysis. And as y'all recall, we set the goal at 75% last year because of how the state had changed it. So we were going to try that, and indicated we may have to tweak it some, just depending on how all of that did. So right now, our goal, of course, is 75%, and the fund balance is 77.28%. So it does, we are ahead there. However, that includes the ARPA money, the second tranche. So I wanted to subtract that out because I feel like that's committed to, we just can't pull money from that part. But it has to be part of our total fund balance because it did not, I tried to get, when we had the audit, like that to be separated into the different categories, but it didn't qualify for that. So I just have to keep track of that separate. But without that ARPA, it's at 69.8%. Now, why this has changed and is because we have the the fire department with almost $1 million added to that is part of the formula that you divide into it with the expenditures. So that number really needs to be lower because our expenditures are higher. So I would like to suggest, I've got down here to recommend a new goal of 68%. And I would need to update our fund balance policy, which I could do like on the next consent agenda. But what's going to happen if we don't do that is we're probably never going to have anything rolling over to the capital reserve fund. And it just makes sense when your budget is higher that you need less of a percentage in there. So I just thought this might be a good time to discuss that if y'all see any problems with that.
And what's the league's recommendation? League of municipalities.
It's changing all the time.
What
but-
currently. Roughly.
But you're saying because we're bringing in more, our budget is bigger, that we can
Right.
increase that percentage.
The league, I don't know that they really give out a recommendation. There's something in the general statutes that says at least 8%. The league or no one else says you should have a fund balance that low. I mean, that would basically.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. They
Basically
usually.
be a month. So before the state, how the treasurer's office changed, it was based on the average of our size of municipality, which was around this 75%.
Mhm.
The new way they did that, it actually came in quite a bit lower. I don't remember the exact number, but it was just too low for us to have. I would not recommend that at all.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're, and I assume we are, but just checking like, good practice.
Well, for a number of years, we've had it like at the 75%, but well, it's gone from probably 68 to 75, somewhere in there, and it's just varied. But I do think around the 68% would be good. What also, we don't want to have too much rolling in to capital reserve fund because we got 107 coming.
Yeah.
So we may have to tweak this every year. We may have to look at it, but I think that's a good number to start off with, and maybe that will allow us to put some back. If we got to where it was too much on that fund balance policy, I put in there that as manager and finance officer, we could recommend, say if it one year it came in real high and we just didn't feel comfortable putting that much into the capital reserve fund because we knew what was coming down the road, we could make the recommendation. So we want to have some, we just don't need a whole lot right now going into 107 and the economy and all of that. So, on the back part of your page, so speaking about capital reserve fund, we currently in the general fund have 220,245. Fire department has 309,220. And then our revolving loan fund is just around 45,000, which is has dwindled down quite a bit, but we still have a little bit of money in that. So I have the Fisher Creek analysis here, and then you can see as of mid-year, we have 26,752 in interest. The total interest broken down by banks, I have kept up with this since we originally got the money in 2007. So you can see the total that we've earned. We are now keeping track of the water quality interest, which would be 40%. And that's currently at $12,068.71. And here's the Fisher Creek funds that on the right-hand side, there's water quality. It's $1,219,390. That does not include Yeah, that's just what we've got in water quality, but I keep the interest separate and.
Thanks for making that change.
Yeah. All right, and then in the pink, I put the ARPA funds and the interest. And then I have subtracted out the appropriations, which is for Bridge Park and the skate park and then the filtration system, which is leaving us a balance of $441,225.35. And the only other thing is our outstanding loans. It's the fire department pumper truck and the fire department building. And those will be paid off in next year's budget as well. Yes, we will be doing some budgeting for next year, but then once we get through that, they'll be paid off. And as a reminder, the county is paying, does give us the bill. And then I think Amanda, she will discuss the property. Any questions?
On the capital reserve funds, the 220, 245, is that completely unallocated or is the sidewalk money in there for 107?
No, we have a
That's a
sidewalk
separate- Okay, that's what I thought.
project fund. This is just money that we can pull from for vehicles and trash trucks or that kind of stuff. And that's the money when it's over the percentage on the fund balance,
Mhm.
that will go, that goes up.
there, yeah.
And so if we need those type of things and we don't have the money in the capital reserve fund, then we're pulling more than likely from fund balance anyway. So it's nice just to have some set aside for that purpose. If we can.
For the Fisher Creek funds, is there only a certain amount that we can spend a year on that? Is there a limit to?
It's just what y'all choose to do. I mean, we have an annual budget for maintenance and such that we have to pull. If the interest rates are not good, then we end up pulling from fund balance on that. If the interest rates are up there, then we can operate closely off of that money, not have to pull out of the balance. So it just all depends what's being done.
Overall, the unofficial goal of that fund is for it to be sustainable though. Right. And on good years when we have, good interest earning in there, the maintenance cost right now doesn't exceed that. But there have definitely been times where it has.
Thinking that, leaving that money in this year. Have better interest rates on our return going into what's happening this year.
Leaving it in there.
I'll say, I guess what I'm getting at is there's a shortfall over here in the park and I came in $300,000 over budget, so, it was definitely a water quality issue and runoff there, so. Just keeping it in the back of my brain, maybe we could use. Project, get some of this grant on.
So that grant or the water quality money, 1.4 million has to be spent on water quality over the course of the grant. Currently, and this is all on here, but currently we've spent $182,141.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Which is leaving basically 1.2 million.
For water quality.
Yes.
But water quality where? Like, is it specific to like the town, or does it have to be at like, you know, Pinnacle Park or that area, or is it just it's like water quality in general for the whole time?
Yes.
But one of our, I mean, we got that money, it was urban Pinnacle Park area. And we do know that in the future, and we're actively working towards that with Pinnacle Park Foundation to, you know, rehab that trail system, rehab that park and make it to where the management of it is sustainable. And expending those funds outside of that park are a risky thing to do because it can compromise the future, the sustainable future of that park. So,
Exactly, yeah.
for things like the Bridge Park, yes, it is water quality related, but in my opinion, it would be a very last resort to use Fisher Creek funds for that. Especially when we have things like ARPA funds at our expense or grant money, potential, you know, grants through TDA and things like that. I mean, it's not an official policy of that Fisher Creek Watershed Fund, but I just urge extreme caution in how we expend that outside of that park. And when we do expend it in the park, to make sure that we do it in a way that sustains that fund, which is why I like that change that you made for putting the interest earned off the water quality section back into it. So it does have to be spent on water quality, but it'd be nice if it were done sustainably.
And that also covers BlackRock too. I mean, we don't have more fund for what to cover BlackRock, so we have more land.
We bought that.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, but that also keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's a lot of land to preserve and maintain.
Yeah.
More questions?
I guess just in terms of like. What would be some of the projects that we would do up there that dealt with water quality? In the spring.
Right, so the plan right now
Box.
is we're getting a master plan done for the park. And that will show us, through community input, it'll develop sort of a plan for how people want to see that park to be developed. And part of that will be rehabilitating the trail system. And then we would use that plan to apply for the Parkage grant, most likely. I think as part of the master plan, we're going to have the company who does that apply for the Parkage grant to get us money to rehab the trails, which will be a huge expense. And then it would be on us to maintain those trails. And that would be a good use of the water quality funds. Or I think part of it is a matching grant too, isn't it? So we would need to use some of those funds for that trail rehab.
Or if you have like, you know, outside organizations helping with trail maintenance, you know, like Sylva for just comes to mind, but but no, seriously, having that can help us out a lot too. But because those trails right now, especially the East Fork, it's awful and it really impacts water because the trails are just runoff disasters and just the way they're cut through. So
They're essentially old logging roads.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
They weren't built to be trailed.
No, for sure.
They were
Yeah.
repurposed to be trailed.
They're meant
Exactly.
to drag logs.
And and building new trails, you can build them, whether they're just people only or bikes or whatever. But you can build them so if it stops that erosion, it stops that runoff going right into the creek. So it's like it did very kind of dual purpose, just like what we're trying to do downtown. And I just want to say thank you for not investing in town in any crypto.
Yes.
This year.
Statutes would not have allowed that.
Do the property tax analysis.
So we ended fiscal year 2022 with a collection rate of 97.96%, which is up slightly from the previous year. As of yesterday, the collection rate for this current fiscal year is 91.79%, which is just also slightly higher than this time last year. So this report here is actually as of the end of December. So we always have lots of payments come in that first 5 days of January, which makes a huge difference in our rate. Obviously, tax collections are directly affected by the economy that we stand in at the time. As we prepare for what analysts have said with the recession coming up, that Lynn mentioned, a decrease in collections is quite possible. It did happen with the recession of 2008, 9, 10. It's not usually recognizable at the very beginning of it. It takes, a tax cycle or two for it to really be realized. So most likely, if we see a recession that comes later in 2023, we're looking at probably the end of next year, or even the following fiscal year, when our revenues would go down. Couple that with what's going to occur with the Highway 107 project. We're looking at probably a major decrease in our tax value. So there have been a handful of purchases already processed with NCDOT. Those have been complete takes of that property, but they've not been the large parcels that, it's still tax value, it's still tax revenue that's been taken, but they've not completed the process for the larger parcels that they're planning to take. So that's coming. So what that means is that for this 2023 tax year, that we will bill in September of this year won't necessarily be affected by the value, because it's billed as of the property owner of January 1. And even if property transfers to an entity that does not pay tax, that current bill still has to be paid. So the upcoming billing cycle in August and September will go out close to what it has gone out, this year, just shy of those parcels that have been taken. So in the next 2 years, for tax value, we expect to see a pretty significant decrease. That obviously is then revenue. And so that means we have to plan now for that revenue loss and decisions that are made, just coupled with that and the recession together. So it's just something we have to, we don't have a way right now to project what the tax value is going to do, because the plan changes so often, and as they change their construction plans or whatever, that alters what they might have originally had planned for a parcel. So we don't really have a way of seeing what is going to really happen with the tax value until it happens. So that's kind of where we stand on that right now.
Just clarification, some of those parcels that they take for construction come back to the town afterwards, right? Because aren't they taking some land for like staging areas and that kind of thing?
So depending on the type of easement that they decide for that parcel, determines whether it goes back to the property owner or not.
Right, or probably not. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't really have a way of knowing that. What's really going to affect our tax value are the complete takes of the larger parcels or the larger right of ways.
Yeah, gotcha.
Correct.
So like when they take a portion of a property, it's hard we can't estimate or because we don't know what the value is going to be on the remaining chunk, but the total takes and still don't even have final plans.
Yeah.
When they change them, it's still hard to even estimate. Do we have kind of a rough order of magnitude on what we're gonna lose, do you think? Like, are we talking a couple 100,000 or
I would say at least.
And some of those big tracks, what are any ones that come to mind? I'm trying to picture like.
Well, the ones that have already been closed on include the track that Blossom and Gas Building was on. That was a large tax value. So we're looking at parcels like that will take the value.
And is that permanent then?
That is permanent.
That whole
lot is owned by DOT now.
okay.
Yes.
Oh, because I think it's one of those, is it one of those turnouts or something, the bump outs? Anyways, never.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
in the intersection.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's moving though, but because it's moving, but there will be like another spot that will probably, where the road is now, might open back. You know what I mean? I think there's some of it is shifting too. There may be, that's what I'm just trying to get at. I know we need to plan for what's coming. And then if we get land comes back under the books afterwards, we'll contend with that, but
Right,
I'm just kind of thinking through it.
and where Blossman moves to, if it's in city limits, which I think it is, then we'll see an increase in property value
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
but still, right, can't count on that.
No,
Well,
exactly.
The thing is, it's a rolling number
Yeah,
on the revenue and the tax value. So we're gonna go, even if it does come back to the property owner, we're still gonna go through this period of time where we don't have that tax.
and we have to
value.
plan for that.
And how are we gonna make it during that
Yep.
time?
Yep.
So,
And as soon, so for like a typical property, it only gets reevaluated during the county's reevaluation period, but when it changes hands or DOT doesn't take, then it's effective, like, we don't get the tax revenue starting from that point. Like, we don't, like, when the county does its reevaluation, which is like,
Every 5 years, which is, I
yeah, and they're doing one next year, or
2024.
think like that 26, it would be reflected in the 26-27 cycle.
but we'll start feeling the trickle effects of these properties when they get taken.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, so when I bill in September, we're gonna be down right at $2.9 million in value from the 8 properties that they've taken so far.
2.9 on our tax. On
That's
tax percentage,
value.
what is, yeah, but what does that come to in tax revenue?
It's right at $15,000. So those and it's a little hard to base it off of that because the properties that they've taken, only 2 of them have been large parcels. The others have been smaller pieces that connected or, so that 2.9 on 8 properties is not really indicative of how to average it out.
Is there any relief from the DOT baked into any of this? Because eventually the properties on 107 will rise in value once the road is done. So is there any relief in the interim from the DOT baked into the plan?
No,
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, that's challenging. So we got a potential recession coming up with a decrease in
Correct.
collection rate, decrease in property values, decrease in sales tax revenue.
Yes, because a larger portion of our tax revenue is commercial. And that's what we're losing. So your residential property owners that are, outside of this commercial district are going, they have to absorb what's left. And so that's where we're going to end up. Because our commercial value is going to go down so much.
The state does not allow for a separate commercial versus residential property tax rate.
and what's the latest time frame for digging?
they're still expecting to start July of 2024.
Okay. So in that like the revalue, there's gonna still probably be digging during the revaluation.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna
absolutely.
be several revaluations from when the project is finished and there's no way to time redevelopment.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, for redevelopment.
So
As far as,
this rolling number,
yeah,
we're going to be rolling for a long time.
yeah, exactly. Good, that's good to think ahead though. I mean, it's a bummer we're gonna have to contend with it.
Very much so.
On the other side of it though, I feel really good that it's gonna be good on the other end of it. Property value's gonna go up very fast. In the meantime. Stay on it.
Any other questions for Lynn or Amanda on this? So the next, we've got this handout of where your tax dollar goes based off of the audited number. And I do this every year just so you can kind of see the percentage of what your pennies of a dollar are going towards, broken down by how the audit separates departments. Looking at our current budget, we approved a budget of 5.8 million. And then when 8 fire department full-time employees were approved instead of 11, that budget was reduced after the first of the year by 117,324. So the budget number that needs to be highlighted there. So let's talk about what we have accomplished in the 22-23 budget. Our priorities were maintaining the current level of services and equipment replacement, additional public works employee transitioning to a split paid and volunteer fire department. We updated our salary study and pay classification plan, and then got the use approved to for our $3 million SCIF grant from the legislature to use it on Bryson Park capital improvements along with playground equipment. Looking at other priorities, we left the OPEB and separation allowance contributions at 125,000. Purchased leased vehicles and public works truck to keep on our replacement schedule, and again added additional personnel. As we continue to look at implementing our pay plan, the options are to do it as we go along, which we've been trying to do, instead of having a big increase as we realize we need to go up in a pay study. So we do that through merit increases and cost of living adjustments. The CPI that's proposed this year is 6.4%. So that will be based on what the town can afford. I think that's another indicator of where we're headed with the recession.
Oh, last year's was 9%, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't grow 9% and 6.4
Yeah.
year after year. Something has to reset. Other accomplishments, we have an ongoing. We have the website and our ordinance recodification. Can you all think of others?
The management of Allen Street landslide, that's been
Yeah.
completely ongoing, week to week. Task for the town.
Yeah.
To manage and deal with.
Yes, we were talking about updating this presentation, looking at, it looks like our accomplishments are small or less, but the magnitude of those.
Yeah.
Adding an apartment, having so many, I mean, we've got more money in projects than we have in our budget. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But the workload goes along with that.
Yeah. Yeah, the amount of staff time is like a major accomplishment.
I would say the botanical survey for the botanical park. An accomplishment for this year.
I think getting your public art at the Bridge Park is an accomplishment. It's happening. Signed off on and last.
Yeah. Social district.
Yeah, the half pipe.
The half pipe this year.
Some assembly required, just saying earlier.
Got a drill.
Anytime.
Actually put one of the pieces of together.
Others. So budget issues, we talked about upcoming recession and 107. how that times with the county's next revaluation is going to be complicated. Looking at our primary source of funds, state revenues, along with property taxes, and then followed by ABC revenues and utility taxes. What I want to point out here is when you shrinking these revenue sources shrinks the budget that we can spend.
So the ABC, yeah, that'll be interesting, the ABC revenue, because we had a couple of banner years of alcoholism, if you will, or whatever, but I mean, you know, during the pandemic, unfortunately, there was a lot of alcohol use going on, and so I wouldn't be surprised if our ABC revenue probably goes just back to normal. I feel like we got a bump, but then I mean, what do you budget around that too, the ABC revenue or at all, or?
I don't budget the extra.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
They have a specified, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we know in advance, but other times we don't, and I don't realize. And something could change, so. But definitely this year, they're making quarterly, we're getting an extra $40,000 on the general fund part. But it just, the last few years or so, we had some extra.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's not a huge percentage, but I mean, it allows us to do some, you know, some projects, extra stuff in house.
Well, our agreement with the county is to receive a minimum of 160,000.
Oh, okay, got it. And then last year, how much did we get? Do you remember offhand? Oh, didn't we get an extra bonus or whatever?
They made an extra distribution.
Something.
thinking it was 200,000.
Yeah,
We budget the agreed upon minimum.
160 goes in the right. Right, okay, cool. And then we got an extra 200.
I was either 160 or 200.
Oh, so we're gonna check more.
Yeah. Probably 40%, so 160 extra.
So looking at our other post-employment benefits, this is our retiree medical insurance that we pay until retirees become Medicare eligible. And separation allowance that law enforcement receives from when they retire until they're 62. We budget for these every year so that when employees retire, we have the funds set aside to be able to cover the separation allowance and medical insurance until they roll off. So we save for it. And as you're looking at the cost of insurance and inflation, knowing that this is the town's obligation, planning for it ahead of time is the best process. So we did this through an actuarial study for medical insurance. It costs $4,000 a year, and we received the change, but it's based off of insurance rates, the retirement dates, the age of the workforce, and adding employees. So when we adding the fire department, that'll change what's expected in the upcoming 23-24 actuarial study. So all this lays in, and we don't know until we receive that study what the amount suggested is. Numbers, you can see our liability has increased from the prior year. Our annual contribution from the general fund has been $125,000 the last few years. And our estimated unfunded obligation, if everyone that could retire did when they were eligible, that's what has not been funded. So that's what we're trying to save for. And looking at our workforce, we have 5 on medical insurance right now, 2 that are eligible this year, 1 in 23-24, and another in 24-25. The separation allowance, we've got 3 law enforcement retirees on it now, and another one is eligible in 29-30.
How many years do you have to serve to get that? How many?
30 years for law.
For law enforcement, 30, okay. And is that for?
You get, well, this is sort of, well, you can get it a little faster, but you can, if you don't use your sick time, you can use that in your career. So say, save up a year of sick time, you can retire a year early and still get it. And that's still sort of,
And it's not necessarily with the same department, it's no matter where you go.
Correct.
Yeah, gotcha.
but your sick, it has to have 30 years.
Right, yeah.
Then the formula goes back to the years they've been service.
No.
Where they were retired from.
That's what you have to understand, yeah, so. If we hire somebody for 5 years and they finish out a 30-year career working 5 here, we still have to pay that separation allowance on 30 years of service.
And so does everybody else.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, that's.
So separation allowance, that one, we're in a little bit better of a position with our unfunded obligation balance at 237,256. So this year I've added an upcoming budget project issues section. Where we are with the 107 sidewalks, we basically have 200,000 saved. And you can see the breakdown there of what we've put back each year. And the Skyland Drive project that's about to start, our portion of that is 381,000. What I want to point out here is our last pedestrian plan thought the total cost of that project would be 400,000. We're paying 20% of that as the town's responsibility. So that 1.9 million is around what the project should come in at, or is estimated to cost. So my point there is projects are a lot more expensive than the quotes that we've gotten. And it's not that plan is, I mean, that is a 10-year-old plan, but what's happened with the cost the last few years is what's really driving this.
And the 107 sidewalks, can you remind me what we're responsible for? Is it's only regions where there weren't sidewalks before and only a portion of the materials cost, or the whole materials?
It's 20% or 10% of the equipment. Sorry, not equipment, pavement.
So we figure out how much we need to have in that.
So we had an engineer's estimate a few years ago, and each year we reach out to make sure that's still what they think that sidewalk will cost. 250,000 was what I have in the back of my mind, but I'll double check that. But seeing how much the Skyland Drive sidewalk increased.
Right.
I mean, but that one includes everything, curb and gutter. We're just on the pavement,
Right.
what we're responsible
Everything.
for 107. Plus, a lot of sidewalk has been built, so that reduces what we pay too.
And it might be cheaper too. I mean, this is a sidewalk project versus being part of a huge project doing the sidewalks. So there's got to be some type of economy of scale there.
Right.
And when would we need to hand those funds over at completion? or that start. So 2024, we're gonna need to have the amount. So what's our?
I'll verify that, but that's what I'm remembering.
So we have two, well, no, we have this year really to get to that amount that we think we're gonna want.
That number was 250,000.
That's what I think. I'll double check that.
We probably would want to commit more than 50 this year, I would think, to be safe. I don't know, what do you plan on putting in there for that contribution this year?
I'll find out when it's due for sure and look at our budget, what we think we can do. What it's gonna come down to is what we can budget before it's due versus what we take from fund balance.
I was just gonna say, that sounds like a good fund balance. Because it's gonna be such a long project and they kind of, then we can pay back.
But I mean, looking at those other things that we're gonna have to probably dip into fund balance for, planning for it is the better option.
So did I hear it right on the Skyland Drive sidewalk that we need 20% or one? Right.
Yes. What we need for our portion is 381,200.
How much did we put aside already for?
We've put that aside already.
Oh, where's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the delay is really just, there's not contractors that want the job.
It was, all kinds of things. It was a hydrology study. It was additional right of way acquisition. It was lack of interested bidders. And,
Expanding it to the railroad crossing.
But they've received bids, they've
Yes.
selected.
and it's under
They-
contract.
That's good. Who's doing, you know?
I have it written down in the office. I can't
Something
remember off
else.
the top of my head.
But I think it's a good thing just to bring up too, like when, we're always like, how are we gonna pay for this? Should we use this money or that money? And, I think it's always important if like when we can, they're always gonna be more expensive. When we have projects like, keep that in mind, like, okay, it's gonna cost us more later, maybe we have to use some money here now and that we don't wanna use, just thinking, just put it out there.
So we have Allen Street and Bryson Park broken into two separate projects because of their funding sources. You can see here what we've approved for the budget ordinance. And I know this was highlighted in talking about Linda's contributions, but this couldn't happen without the state capital infrastructure grants that we've gotten from our House and Senate representatives, and along with the contingency funds. Those have been crucial to making this happen, but the town has also put a lot into this. This is just a huge project as far as expense and magnitude. The Bryson Park project, what we have here, $3 million. The anticipated Worcester contract on the repair is 1.9. And then we'll end up with stabilizing that area above the park, redoing the parking area, redoing the playground equipment, and the pavilion.
Basketball courts.
Yeah. So it'll be a brand new park at the end of this.
On that, is there gonna be, like, I didn't really see any exercise equipment for like adults? A track or some of those stations,
There's not room for a track. We could do room for the stations.
yeah, I think that would be a nice addition.
Hear you say track, and I just want to say, when I go to Potsy Park with a friend of mine, we try to make laps around the park with our children. If there was a way to just be like a little perimeter walkway, that'd be sweet. I'd love it. It's an easy way for parents to.
It'll certainly be easier there
Yeah.
without it than it would be at Poteet Park. Just because that's kind of a long skinny track
Yeah.
and just, and there's gonna be new fencing and you'll have a natural border.
Exactly.
Retaining wall.
Yeah, exactly.
But just inside the fencing, that would be really nice.
Yeah.
Are you all willing to reduce the playground area for that?
Yeah.
A track
For a track?
inside.
Yeah, I
Bryson?
mean, are there gonna be more, like, I feel like we're a little ways off for kind of moving pieces around in the
Like a
park.
design.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's gonna be a whole
yeah,
discussion in
yeah,
24, 25.
yeah,
By
exactly.
the time we get around to that. Couple things that spring immediately to mind is if you do a track, it needs to be ADA compliant and if it's not, which would be a minimum of 5 feet. I think let's kick that can to
Yeah,
park design in the future.
that's an example. More
Park
discussion.
design will be.
I just wanted to throw it in there, the basketball court is awesome, but I think we need amenities there for $2.
Do you think we'll be to the point of doing park design? I mean, I know nothing can happen until the slides stabilize.
Slide repairs commence full bore in spring 23. I would think all at the absolute earliest, 23 for that discussion, and then into 24 for implementation.
Is this image here, is this, just something you pull off the web just to show an example, or is this something came from?
This is something this playground equipment company came up with for the park. And I gave this to you all back in the spring. There were 3 photos together of different sections by ages. But this is what would fit in the park. And we use this to determine what an estimate for playground costs.
So, this is what would fit, assuming that there's a pavilion and a basketball court, so.
So the public restrooms, we've got 390,000 in SCIF grants from the legislature for that. And some of those are coming through the Southwestern Commission and some have gone directly to the town. Here, we still have to determine the lease amount, and this doesn't include our 50,000 utility relocation. So once we get this to the contract or we get bids, we'll need to figure out where the additional funds for this will come from.
And this has been sent to the railroad.
No,
Oh, we're still not there yet?
it won't be submitted to the railroad until we have stamped architectural and engineering plans, which was their requirement.
Okay, so these are not stamped.
No, those are constant, really conceptual.
Okay. Are we getting stamp plans or what are we doing?
Yeah, Odell's working with Alex Stillwell on those.
Okay.
290, we have 390.
Yes.
Copper.
We have an additional 100,000 in last year's approved state budget.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It was 290. And then, yeah. It was actually we got what, 30 from?
It was 250. We got 40,000 through Southwestern Commission and then 100,000 in the next.
Yeah.
And then,
All the money you all got, I lost track.
I know you guys strong work. And that the utility relocation is gonna be, just to point out, it's gonna be really cool too, like those big giant lines that are all hanging down there are gonna be moved. back into season.
There's several options there. That price is for an underground relocation to keep them out of the way, so we don't
Yeah.
move them directly in our way when we do the bridge park work,
Yeah,
which will likely at this point start first.
yeah,
But if we can, with the additional money, we can get them underground, get them out of the way, just for growth in the future, and two, it's just better for the skyline.
yeah.
We got a real busy overhead utility grid here, especially downtown.
Just be that section that would go underground. Back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll take.
Eventually,
Like sidewalks, you know?
It's on full.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right.
Okay, so same with the Bridge Park project. We went over this the last meeting, but you see what we budgeted, what will be expended already with the design and project management, and then our estimated project costs.
Bigger. And sorry, just to jump back real quick, we had talked about like waiting for the TDA money for this, which wouldn't come until fall, right? And so you really wouldn't start on this project until probably a year from now, at the earliest, right? Or what did we just?
If with TDA approval would be in July or August, correct? And the project, assuming that we get the award.
Yeah,
Project would commence in the fall at the conclusion of the Pottery Festival. in
Oh, yeah.
November.
okay. So, but you're thinking that's gonna start before the public restroom?
That's likely,
Okay.
depending on where we fall with the railroad lease agreement.
Got it. But if the railroad kind of came through, like in a month, let's just say in nothing indicating that. I know, but if they did, we could get going on that sooner.
If they
right?
did, yeah, theoretically, we could do them concurrently.
Okay. Cause that could be,
They break with all previous trends.
no, I'm just saying, they didn't, like, it's January, you know, like,
We don't have anything going on.
yeah. it's like-
Okay, and we covered Lynn covered ARPA a little bit ago. Okay, so selection of budget focus items. We'll go through the prioritized needs, what's imperative, what department want, what the board wants. But I'd like to start with department needs before getting into the rest. Y'all are ready to this point.
Can we go first? All right. First thing, well, I like to start by saying I really appreciate the additional public works employee from last.
So we were going back and forth about lunch. It's 11:35. Do you all want to do that now or get through the department?
The permit takes a little while.
Do you want to eat while we? Yeah, so
I think you'll have to if you've got some.
Yeah, okay. Let's take a break and get food and then get to it. Hey, Tyler.